Hello, welcome back to Blender Sushi LiveENODING. In this episode, we're gonna learn a quick way you can kind of drive the visibility of objects based on the distance. So this actually can be handy for a lot of applications, and it's actually pretty easy to set up. And I'll show you real quick from scratch. So let's get started. Create a new file, blend file. So I'm gonna have just a couple of Susan head. Look at it from the front view, maybe. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm gonna group Susan head, and we're gonna bring it into animation nodes. I will be using animation nodes, but it will also work using SpreadChalk. And it's actually a lot faster depending on whether it's vectorized or not. So objects from group, we're gonna bring the objects into animation nodes. So they are already grouped. So we can simply grab the group, and I'll save it as driving visibility with nodes. You can, of course, make this setup using drivers in Blender as well, but I like to do it using nodes. It's a lot more logical somehow. So we can, for this to work, we actually just need to compare something. In this case, my controller is this empty, and the idea is that if the empty is actually close in close distance to one of these Susan head, the Susan head is either gonna be visible or invisible. So that's the idea. So this is the controller. I'm gonna bring in the controller as well. So objects transform input based on the controller. So now we can check the position of this controller in 3D space. We need to actually set this up to always if you want to see it happening and in real time. So we need to compare this with the Susan head position. So we cannot just compare this location. If we are using the vector distance, we can plug this in like that, but we cannot just plug in the objects. We need to find out the object location. So we need to use object transform output, or actually object transform input. This is the objects coming in, and this is the location of the objects. Plug that in, and you will see we should be able to see all the 5 positions of Susan head. And we are comparing the distance between the Susan heads with this locator. So as a result, we're gonna get the distance. So okay, so we have all the data ready, and then we just need to make some kind of a logic comparison. And so we have this Boolean logic we can compare. Supposedly the idea is really just to compare this value with another value. And I think you can do it this way, like comparing it. Let's say like we have 5 value to compare with this guy, and then we should get some kind of result. Yeah, the thing is the comparison doesn't always work with a multiple value yet. We need to use looping, so it's not vectorized yet in animation nodes. So we need to do this comparison inside a loop. So with the distance, list of distance being selected, I tap W and then loop through the distance. And this is the distance value of these 5 objects. And we want to do a logic comparison again. Compare the distance with a value. The value can be anything. I set it up to 2 or 3 depending on the bounding box of Suzanne. But as a result, we're gonna have a true or false value. I'm gonna create this Boolean list. So now we can see it says true, 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 true. So let's try to put this empty somewhere there. Update it. Now that guy is false because the value is lower than 3. And if I turn on always, and I move the empty around near the Susan head, you can see the true and false kind of being generated on and off. Okay, so that's kind of almost ready. So the next thing we want to do is to use this true and false value to control the visibility of Susan head. So visibility, object visibility output input, and let's plug our objects in there, and then the value goes in here. So now let's check it out. So it seems to be working, and currently it's see, if it's closer to one of the Susan head, it will appear or disappear. I should put all the Susan head in closer coordinates. But anyhow, you see it's actually working. True and false. Okay, we can actually switch this boolean. So instead of false, it needs to be inverted. So I'm just gonna invert the boolean like so. So now, whenever the empty is closer to Susan head, it's gonna give this true or false value. Of course, you actually want the opposite. It's up to you whether you want to do this or not. And you can use this to actually for rigging purpose. For example, you can control the blend shapes based on the distance, and it's actually quite interesting. You can set up a pose of character based on the distant approximations to something. So yeah, in the next live noding, you will see I will be using this for blend shapes for a face, different face, and then you can control the face using this kind of control. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully this is useful, and I'll see you next time. Bye.